fatal thought impact, past painful thoughts. In fact, I blast tasteful thoughts and past. I back up my actions, fact don't ask, grab reactions, jacked attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're discreet now. Get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Q's show here, and now. Whenever we last left off, with this series, quite a bit of things have happened. In the last part, Deku, he returned to the human Homeworld planet. Now, whenever Deku left, this place was the size of a large village. And if you do want to give it the term small city, you could. However, you'd be stretching it. However, right now, Deku, he returned to the planet almost 2 years later to discover that the human homeworld, it has an actual city here. And this was something that caught Deku off guard. Since the current number of people here and Deku does meet, whenever he does land, is somewhere between 2,500 to 2,700. And for those of you who are curious to the Quark population number, it's somewhere around 20%, with around 500 to somewhere between 600 people with Quarks. Now, with that out of the way, Deku, he was very surprised. And so were many of these people who were here. They're going about their day, and then a ship lands with a man inside of it that they've heard about before. And not only has this man been talked about in a way that seems almost story-like, but the fact was, people ran up to him and dropped to their knee, and seemingly showed their loyalty to him. He seemed to be someone from straight out of a fairy tale, and that caught them off guard. Since even the security squads, they were very keen to investigate who these people were, since they had no idea. Now, Deku, he himself has been trying to get reacquainted with city life, as it's been a couple weeks since then, and a lot more people, they're interested in the ways of the yautja. Deku's had people run up to him and ask him questions, because of not only their curiosity, but because the fact is, they want to either get their hands on some of the yautja weapon and tech, or they're just genuinely fascinated by the lifestyle. Some of them, they know why Deku's leading them the way he is. He's on a revenge course for the engineers. And he is going to go to a lot of means he can to get his hands on them. And a lot of people, they're actually somewhat keen on that too. The idea of paying back these bastards, it's on a lot of their mind. However, some people, they don't let it totally dominate the idea of their thoughts. Now, Deku is currently sitting in a bar and talking with a few people at a table. As well, Deku, he's talking to somebody. He's addressing someone called Dark, who's next to Jackal. And Deku, whenever he does at least go to talk to Dark, he does turn and go to address Tusk and Shorty, two other people on his left, as there's somebody he hasn't addressed yet. And while Deku is talking, somebody, they do tap him on the shoulder and then go to tossing down to the table. Deku, he does turn and look. The person, they toss down a sharp blade. And Deku, he can tell from the make and model of it, it's clearly a yautja weapon. What is it? Why are you bringing me this? I found a kid carrying this. What do you have to say for it? What? I found a kid carrying this. He was swinging it around like a toy. What do you have to say for yourself? Besides, the kid said he got it from somebody who was at this table. Deku, he does at least go to turn and look back at everybody else, asking if any of them handed a kid a knife. And all of them, they all do at least go to say no. Deku turning back and telling the person that none of them did it. Really? You can't expect me just to take your word on that. I don't. However, you come here to my table. You interrupt my conversation. You act like a rude piece of shit, and then you try and tell me and blame me that somebody has a knife, and that they're treating it like a toy. Excuse me, you have no right to talk to me that way. Do you even know who I am? I'm a member of the security force. Oh, boo fucking who, I don't care. Listen, you could have just talked to the kid. Show him it's not a weapon. Hell, do that, and he won't play with it. Do you have any idea how this shit actually does work? The person getting a bit annoyed. As you do, however, somebody they do come walking over to the table and gonna tap Deku on the shoulder. Deku, turning his head as he does see somebody who they do catch his attention. Deku, he looked down at their feet first, and then as he was going to lean backwards to look up, he was able to tell by this man's posture he's former military. And Deku, well, he doesn't want to say he's in his early 30s, possibly early 40s. He does make that assumption based off of some of the scars he does see on the guy, along with the fact that his hair does seem to be going a bit gray. Who are you? My name doesn't really matter. However, I am the head of the security force. And right now, I'm gonna have to ask you to talk to me. So what do you want? You're not acknowledging what this person's saying. Clearly they have a problem with it. People have been running around with weapons for months. And they're keen to try and go into this yautja lifestyle I've heard about. What can you tell me about that? It's good for them. They can make the choices they want to. They can embrace the lifestyle if they do want. And clearly, from what I'm hearing, this kid's unblooded. Unblooded. That's the term you use for hunters who haven't killed anything, right? It's more or less something, yes, like that. Alright. Well, let me just rephrase this. It was a kid with this weapon. In fact, it was that person's nephew. They found him running around with a blade and acting like a thug. So, we took the knife away from him. And right now, he's detained. So, I want you to talk to the kid. Straighten him out. Can you do that? That's what they were trying to ask you. Alright. I can talk to him. Show him how a blade works. But you know, you can't really stop him if he does want to try and be blooded. Embrace the yautja lifestyle. I can stop him. Deku going to pause, as he is going to turn back, restating that he really can't. And what makes you say that? Because I used to be a fucking teenager? Have you ever been a kid? I'm assuming you were at one point, right? Older man, more experience. You'd think you'd be more open to these ideas. You have no idea what I've been through, kid. You really wouldn't talk to me that way if you knew what I have seen. You're former military, right? Yep. That much is obvious, I assume. It's obvious by the way you're standing. Along with that, the way your posture is. The way your hands are, and the fact that there's a tattoo on your wrist. The guy is going to somewhat look down towards his wrist, towards the tattoo. As he does somewhat go to hide that, talking about how Deku seems to know his stuff. Parents are both military. I know a decent amount. Had enough experience with weapons around my own childhood. Learned they weren't toys, not to be messed with. I knew a rifle could be used to kill a man. I knew that from a young age, actually. So, if the kid's taught right that weapons aren't toys, they won't treat them that way. I see your point. However, the kid is reckless. He needs guidance. So you're just gonna lock him in jail and not give it to him? The guy getting a bit angry. Deku, he clearly isn't doing what he's thinking. He's not acting the way he thought this guy would. And it's pissing him off. Everybody just listens to him. Everybody does what this guy says because he says it. He's big, he's mean, he's, well, scary. And that's what makes people respect him. And he's clearly not focusing on exactly what's going on here, since he's concerned about the kid too. And Deku, he does just go back to talking to his friends. and the guy he does go to bring his hand up and grab onto Deku's shoulder, informing him that he really needs to straighten the kid out for him, since the kid he has heard too many stories about him before. Get your hand off my shoulder. No, I said get your hand off my shoulder. I'm not going to do that. I want you to promise me to talk to this kid. Otherwise, me and you are going to have a problem. Deku, he actually does go to stand, as he does go to bring up his right hand and go to try and grab this guy by his wrist to push him up. However, the moment Deku, his arm does go to crash into this guy's wrist, the guy he does actually go to pull Deku backwards and off of the table. And Deku, he's sent flying backwards across the room before smashing into something. Deku crashing through the bar as he does break through solid wood, before smashing into the, well, you know, wall and cracking metal. Now, after Deku does go to do that, he does go to stand back up, as the guy he does start walking towards Deku, talking about how he did warn him, and right now it looks like he's going to have to beat some sense into him. He knows enough about the yautja ways that if he does at least take Deku's title as the strongest, then people will actually listen to him. At least the people running around in their underwear will. And as the guy is walking towards Deku, you do actually have somebody who does going to jump onto this guy's back and bring something upwards to his throat. As he does pause, where the guy does feel cold metal pressing upwards and into a vein in his neck. As the guy he does just hold still, him bringing his hands up, as he does go to start slowly reaching for the person by the back of the neck. He knows that he could pull this short man off of him, and get that tiny blade away from his throat. Now, Deku he does go to stand back up, telling Shorty to get off the guy's back, since he clearly wants to fight, so they're gonna fight. Can you not do it in my bar? Deku turning his head. Yeah, sorry about that. He just tossed me. I saw. You're still fine. However, he's banned for a while. The guy looking towards the bartender. The bartender actually going to avert their gaze, talking about how they need to take it outside. And Deku he does at least go to agree, as he does go to turn his back to the guy and walk out. And the guy he does get kind of annoyed. Him going directly after Deku, as the two of them are both outside, and Deku he's staying there in the street with his hands up in a fighting stance. As the guy, he does so as well as Deku and this guy have drawn a crowd. Now, we do currently have where Deku, he's talking to this guy about how things have been run for the last couple months, and how he's not only impressed by what Kaylee's done, she can't believe that she hired him on as a security force. Now, this is something that Deku, he does at least pay attention to the guy. From what he understands, this guy, he either fought in the Fourth World War, or maybe, just maybe, one of the smaller ones, since his tattoos he can't really place too well. Along with that, whenever he does go to take off his shirt and get into his own fighting stance, Deku, he does kind of recognize it. However, he also at least recognizes many of this man's wounds. And he does at least acknowledge this man as a strong opponent. As for right now, John, as we'll just call him, he does go to square up to Deku. And whenever Deku, he does go to step forwards and go to attack the guy he does rush forwards as well. As we do actually have where Deku, after at least going to slam his fist down into this guy's gut, he does go to try and clock him across the face. And after Deku does go to throw that punch to the guy, he does just go to reach out for Deku and grab him by the throat. Him going to pick him up as he's going to charge and directly towards the wall, smashing into it. As he does so, he does talk about how he is not really that smart, is he? The guy is still holding on to Deku, as he does inform him that he's fought with a few different squads in a few different companies, and he's even been hired on as a mercenary to help in a few different manners. So, he's going to let him know about this. He may have some bootleg cybernetics, however, there's still some pretty damn good stuff. They might not have been top of the line, but damn if they aren't still pretty good. From what he's been told, the top of the line shit can rip a tank in half. and that's just with their bare hands. He's not even talking about combat augmentation suits. Now, the guy he does still at least go to hold on to Deku. As Deku, after going to bring his legs up and wrap them around this guy's arm, he does get to kick him directly in the face. And the guy, after this, going to try and let go of Deku to try and turn his wrist. Deku actually is going to scurry off the guy before someone doing a small flip. Deku going to land carefully and go to bring his fist upwards and smashes the guy directly in the gut. As the guy he sent flying backwards and smashing into the ground. And a lot of people, they do take notice to that. As when the guy does go to get back up, he does go to walk towards Deku. And Deku is just standing there as he's going to bring up his hand, telling the guy to fight him. And to come on. He clearly wants to fight. The guy getting back up onto his feet and walking over. As whenever he does get directly in front of Deku, he still hasn't brought his hands up. And the guy directly clocks Deku across the face as Deku, his face does turn. Everybody, they're just sitting there waiting. As Deku, he does go to bring his face back up straight, and they go to spit out a mouthful of blood in the other direction, before telling the guy that that was a pretty solid punch. You're not taking me seriously, are you? Alright, you and your fucking quirk. Deku telling the guy that his quirk isn't like that. As the guy does go to cock back his fist, he's going to try and punch Deku directly in the chest. Deku bringing up his hand and catching the guy's fist. And the guy, he actually is very surprised. As while his fist is still moving forward slowly, Deku, he actually does go to completely stop it. As Deku does step forward, it's going to bring his hand upwards to the guy's throat and grabbing it. Deku directly going to smash this guy in the back of his feet and get him up into the air as Deku, he does go to pick the guy up and slam him right down to the ground. Deku climbing on top of him as he is going to start throwing a fury of punches. And the guy, he does try to defend. Him trying to just bring up his arms to guard as Deku does just start wailing downwards into the guy's arms. And the guy, he is kind of just trying to think. Deku just stopped his arm. And right now, the guy is fucking up his arms. This is actually pretty bad. The guy wondering if Deku may be an augmented soldier. And wondering a bit more about that. Clearly the guy is crazy powerful. And right now, he's getting his ass handed to him. As one of the guy, he does actually feel the next blow. Deku sends it down with a lot more force. As one for Deku, he does go to send on the blow. He actually does crack into this guy's arm and breaks his defenses. As Deku, he at least does go to throw a left jabwards downwards, directly into this guy's face, breaking his nose. Before the guy does go to bring up his hips to try and get Deku to get off of his body. And Deku, the moment he actually is somewhat go to get thrown forwards, the guy to try to slip out directly underneath Deku and turn around. Him trying to attack Deku and grab onto his back to get him into a chokehold. However, Deku does quickly go to turn and bring his hand up. Deku jabbing the guy directly with a flat palm into his throat. As Deku does then go to grab the guy and catch him, as Deku, he does go to bring him upwards and smash him directly into a wall. Deku going to pull backwards and just start to jab kidney shot and kidney shot, left and right. Deku hitting the guy in both sides, directly underneath his ribs. As the guy, after trying to bring up his hands to defend, Deku, he does just go to grab the guy by his hair and directly smash his face downwards into his knee. As another guy, he does actually someone go to pull back with his face bloody, and well, one of his eyes swollen. Deku, he does just go to bring the guy upwards with his hand one more time, and smack him across the face. Now, Deku, after landing this solid jab, he watches the guy just get sent flying downwards into the ground. And after he does somewhat lay there for a second trying to catch his breath, you do actually have Deku. Him going to spit out another mouthful of blood, telling the guy that he's still a pretty strong fighter. However, augmentations don't mean shit. And while he might be all good with that robotic stuff, he'll keep to top of the line all natural training. And well, for right now, let's at least show whose authority is actually in charge here. And the guy, he does feel sufficiently angry. However, it's hard to argue with what he just saw. He has met soldiers who were not as committed as this guy. They weren't as strong as this guy. They weren't as tough as this guy. And they were not as experienced as this guy. From what he does know, this guy, he shouldn't be in charge. He doesn't seem to make the proper decisions, the rational ones, the ones that any logical leader would make, the sacrifices they should make. He doesn't seem like that type of guy. And that's what throws John for a loop. Everything he's heard about this guy, it feels like it's almost the exact opposite, in a way. Well, there is a kernel of truth, there's also a kernel of lies. And things he needs to look a bit more into, especially with this strange case, such as Scar. John, he's not really too sure what to think. He's heard a lot about this guy, and so far he's living up to a lot of it. The guy has as much combat experience, from what he's heard, well, more than most men. He has more physical prowess than him. He's a guy who about a good third of his body is composed of robotics. And he still was able to get his shit rocked by Deku, who from what he understands to be a normal human. And his quirk doesn't seem to be a physical power one. Now, along with that, he does also at least know that Deku, he scared quite a bit of yautja unblooded. Because, well, yeah. He was led onto a ship by a commanding officer of the yautja military, from what he understands in handcuffs. And all Deku had was weapons that would render him practically defenseless against this guy. And yet, he's still alive. Now, Deku, he does return back to what he was doing, walking back into the bar, enjoying his night with his friends, and then going to leave. As we do have a bit of time later where Deku, he does walk into a room and sit down with not only a key in the room, but with Kaylee. Now, Kaylee, she's trying to go over some things with Deku, and she's actually at least been talking with a key about a certain thing she has in mind. Now, Kaylee, she has asked Scar if he got into a fight with her head of security today, and Deku expresses to her that he started it. Now, while Kaylee, she does understand that the guy, he's kinda hot-headed, she does at least try to ask Deku what happened. And, well, she gets an answer. The guy threw Deku across the room and there were multiple witnesses. That's all she needs to know. That's how it started, and then they took it outside, where Deku beat his ass, and then he left. He went back to spending time with his commanders. And the guy, he left. He doesn't know where he went after that. I see. Alright. Well, while that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to talk to you, I did have some others. The scientists, many of the people, a lot of the people, they're concerned. They think that you run everything. Okay? And I'm trying to show them that you don't. Okay, I understand. So what about it? People think I take orders from you. And I need you to straighten that out. Okay? So what do you want me to really say? Tell you, tell them, yeah, I'm not in charge? I don't know, really. A lot of people, though, they're looking at you as the leader. They looked at you during a crisis, and they're looking at you now. Clearly, I have no say in anything right now. And that's annoying. It feels like people don't respect me. Especially because whenever I try and give a command on something, a lot of people, they don't really seem to want to follow. So it's a challenge. Deku informing her that, while he does understand that that is a problem, maybe, just maybe, she has to understand that not a lot of people will like you when you're in charge. Since if you're not out there doing something with them, many people, they lose some amount of respect. Deku asking Kaylee if she's actually just been sitting behind her desk or has she actually been working. And Deku, after Kaylee, she doesn't really respond for a minute and her trying to think about her answer. Deku, he already knows enough about what he's seeing. And he does try to inform Kaylee. Get the fuck out there and help those people. And maybe they'll at least respect you, enough to listen to you. And Kaylee, she does try to keep that in mind. As she does at least express to Deku that she also does at least have some interesting developments from the tech department. What is it? Well, tech-wise, it seems we're going good. A lot of the scientists, they're very proud of some of their recent things. They're even proud of a recent medal they've created. What? Yes, it's kind of a mix of different things that we have around here. Okay. And what exactly makes it unique if you call it a medal? Well, technically it's made of four different elements that it really shouldn't exist with naturally. Okay, is it like titanium? Not exactly. It's got components of Damascus, steel, copper, iron. It's got strange properties. Along with that, we even did mix it with a supply shipment of yautja raw irons we ordered. Okay. Anything else? Well, we also mixed it with a strange, almost coal-like substance we found on the planet. It's actually a lot more interesting as a metal. It's very similar to, well, mercury. Okay, and we also mixed it with some xenomorph stuff. And we're not exactly too sure what we've created. Why? Because it doesn't seem to follow natural law. It can take an impact almost. Along with that, the acid, it doesn't really affect it. It's resistant, almost totally. Interesting. So, what else can we do to it? I'm not exactly too sure. It's just interesting. Now, Kaylee does leave off on that, as she at least does go to express that a key here, she's been talking with her, and she's been helping her on a few negotiation ideas with the yautja, knowing what clans they can trade with, where they can possibly find unique resources that they can give to the yautja, and even expressing that, oh yeah, they also do at least have these and these to use as bargaining chips. And Deku, whenever he does hear about that, he does go to shoot down one of the ideas. Him expressing to Aki that he's not really too sure if the yautja they'd be intrigued in that, or interested by it. Well, enough of them would be to have a market for it. Yeah, he doesn't see that as possible for the yautja. And Aki, she does go to at least try and bring it back to that idea. And Deku, when he does go to turn, he actually does look straight at Aki. And she does talk about how it just seemed like a good idea. No, it's an interesting one, but I'm not too sure if the yautja would actually go for it. That's just kind of the problem. I understand, Scar, but just keep it in mind. Alright. So what else do we got? Well, what do you know so far on the engineers? I know enough. Got enough information about it. Know they created us, killed us. Now we're gonna go kill them. What more do I need to know? Well, I mean, it's just... Do you know how to track them down now, or what? Because we've been hearing a lot of stuff about this system you got on your ship from your trip to Yautja Prime. A lot of talking has been had. And, well, a lot of people want to know when we're going to track them down. In fact, it's just... They're curious, Scar. I understand, Kaylee. But there's also one thing I believe you should understand. We're tired. We're tired from the ship. Kaylee kinda confused. As Deku, he does express to her that they didn't have the cryopods. So they spent those 2 years awake and doing things. They can't just go in a cryo sleep and go out of it just like that and have a century go by, like what they did. For them, things were slow. Things were the way people were not meant to be like. And as far as he can tell her right now, if he tries to drag them, any of them, back onto the ship, they all might just try and gun him down. It doesn't matter how loyal they are. Right now, they're tired. And so is he. Deku expressing to Katie that if he has to go on a ship one more fucking time, he might just gouge his eyes out. Since there's only so much you can do in there without going crazy. And even then, what they're talking about right now, it would be a 2-month trip to Earth. Then, it would be longer to try and discover what happened to the engineer's ship. As far as he can tell, this trip, it'd be faster with one of the smaller ships. And, well, that would be it. It would have a smaller crew. Granted, this would also mean, in a way, they're not as effective without how large of a clan they're leading, but there's also the fact that they'd have less resources on the trip. And said trip, a lot of the stuff would either have to be flash frozen or hunted down as fresh resources. Does she understand what he's talking about? Kaylee kind of agreeing. Her understanding that time and space isn't exactly something many people are comfortable with. She herself did start to get a bit claustrophobic. And, well, going from one ship to another like Deku's, it did also lead to increasing her paranoia. She can understand exactly why Deku doesn't want to go on the ship anymore. Her expressing to Deku that whenever a time does seem right, then maybe, just maybe, they can go back out. And Deku does express to her that he can at least send out some people on some of the smaller ships to try and track down and look at the lines they do currently have. They need to fine-tune that tech to go after the engineers. Since, well, they do have some information and at least some stuff from that trip, they need to discover more. They picked up rogue ships and even yautja ships. And Kaylee, she does ask the question, what does he mean by rogue ships? Huh? Well, it's something that we found. There's different ways to track down engine fumes from a ship. If you know the make, model, and all that other complicated bullshit, you can track them down. However, for the engineer ships, they're special. However, we don't exactly understand how special. We've caught the emissions traces of other ships, and from what we can tell, they're different from what we sampled. Scar, do you understand what you're saying? Yeah, it's either we go after these random spaceships, these random things that we can't find, track, and spend years down a rabbit hole trying to find the engineers, or, no, Scar. You know we are able to track down ship emissions. Yeah, I know. You're talking about trying to find the human ship, right? Yes, we need to. The other ships, if we find them, they'll help us. It'll be good. Huh. Maybe. But I don't even know a good place. Oh my god, I'm a fucking idiot. What is it? Earth. It's the key right now. What do you mean? All the ships launched from there. If we look at those emissions, we can find and estimate where they could have been. We can find them by tracking down their emissions straight from the place they left. That was the start of the journey. And I'm just now realizing we can tune the equipment exactly to the emissions. We can track from the ship in the atmosphere. If we do that, we'll actually be able to track them down any way we want to, no matter where we are in the galaxy. We'll find their ship emission. Okay? But that also does at least leave another question. Yeah? The engineers. How far do you think we'll be able to track them? I don't know, Kaylee. From what I've at least heard, we know some of the planets they visited, and we'll at least explore those sometime soon. Maybe later. But I want to at least spend a decent year here, maybe. I just want to enjoy some time and get used to this. Deku looking out the window, as he does see a city with lights on. And that's something that Deku, he does feel pull at his heartstring. He almost imagines the way things were back whenever he was a teenager. He can't help but think back to that day. It's just so strange. He's out in the forest with his dad hunting, and on their way back into the city, he saw it. He saw the way it is at night, the darkness of nature, and then, well, the lights of civilization. You see them compare against each other, and it's just something strange. Now, Deku, it does make him wonder for a minute. Him being pulled out of his thoughts by a key. As we do currently at least have some time later. And Deku is currently laying down in his bedroom apartment he was given. Now, Deku, he is laying on the bed and he is thinking. As he does go to stand up and walk into the kitchen. Deku at least going to turn and go to walk out of a glass door as it does lead onto a balcony. Deku somewhat staring down. He's about 12 stories up. And it's just civilization. He's able to reach out and touch it. That being something that Deku is thinking about. As we do have where Aki just come walking out behind Deku, asking him if he's alright. Deku turning and seeing Aki. As she isn't in her hunting clothing. She's currently in comfy clothing. And Deku, he does somewhat just stare at her for a minute. It's hard to believe yautja, they can be this way. However, then there's also at least the matter with humans. At one point, his species, well, they were cavemen. And right now, he feels like the farthest thing from a caveman. Now, Deku, he does just stare at Aki for a minute. As whenever she has come walking over and go to grab onto Deku's hand, she does ask him if he's alright. Her somewhat playing with his hand as she is going to move it off of the balcony's railing and somewhat ask Deku if he's okay, as she is standing in front of him. Yeah. I just, thinking about a lot. Scar, I know. You have a lot on your mind. And, well, so do I. I'm still thinking of Yautja Prime. You are? Yeah. Yeah. But, I'm thinking about it in a different way now. Really? The clan I come from, both of them. Aki going to somewhat bring her hands up. Her trying to think of what to say as she starts to somewhat fiddle with her fingers and her nails. Now, Deku sees the way she's doing this. She has her hands clasped together, and she's fidgeting with her fingers. I just don't know what to say. Yautja Prime, they are just different than what I expected. I'm still thinking about a lot I've seen. People back there, they seem so happy. Even the non-warriors, they're able to be relaxed. They're able to be defenseless and kind. I've never seen someone with that much love. Someone with that much, well, peace in their heart. I don't know if I want to keep fighting, Scar. Deku kind of surprised. As Akishi talks about how she's tired, she doesn't understand it. She's always had this constant idea to be better, this constant idea to improve and to fight. She's never had anybody understand her. She's never had anybody try to guide her properly. She's never had anybody she can, well, call an ally, a friend, or just someone she can care for. And now that she has that, she feels fine. She feels like she's found a home. And now she doesn't want to fight. Her asking Deku if that's normal. And Deku, he is caught off guard by this. He does express to Aki that her mind might be playing tricks on her. Huh? What do you mean? It's something that happens to humans. Humans, they have emotions. And right now, what you're feeling, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but there's a feeling, there's a name for it. Humans have many names for many feelings. And the one you have, it can be called self-doubt. What you have is a lack of determination. Humans do that. There's also something you need to know. Humans, they do get into these patches you're currently in. What you're feeling right now, it's a lack of determination because you're happy. That happens to humans? Well, it's also a lack of motivation, in a way, I guess you could say. I might not be doing it justice. But, well, okay. Well, the reason why you're like this, you strive, you seek for something, but deep down you want something. You want something you think you'll never have. Something you don't know if isn't in your cards. You've been defensive, you've been paranoid, you've been risky when it came to trusting people. And now you feel like you can. The one thing you've always hated to do, you like. And this is a good example. Deku kind of stepping forwards and bringing his hand up to her face, informing her that, like this, if anyone else tried to do this, Aki would probably tear their hand off with her teeth. But she trusts him enough to let him do this. And he's gotten closer to her than anyone else has. And she knows it. She herself does still maintain a paranoia that if anyone finds out about this, both of them could be in trouble. And her paranoia has shifted from fighting to that. And Akishi does kind of just stare at Deku for a minute. She doesn't know if humans are able to read minds, but right now what Deku's saying, it does make some sense. However, just in her head, she's lacking the, well, will to fight because she's happy. That does not make any sense. Now, with that being said, Deku, he does spend some time looking out and reminiscing about the past, as I do believe that that is a good point to leave this part off of. And I do hope you guys enjoyed, and have an amazing night.